The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on developing your IP and startups with corporate strategic alliances. And today we're featuring one of our latest NZ2 members, Praxair. Just to give you a little background on this webinar series, I'd like to let you know that this is connected to our third University Startups Demo Day that is being held in Washington, D.C. on October 16 and 17 this year. So if you're interested in coming to the event, we have some panels lined up. Just go to our website and early registration is now open. So at the event, we are highlighting actually three major programs, including the startup development program. So that actually makes it four. The University Startup Demo Day, where we ask universities and entrepreneurs to submit their companies, especially those that align with the corporate selection committee members that are speaking in this webinar. The highest scoring companies will gain presentation slots at the conference, and we'll arrange meetings not just with interested corporates and investors, as well as our startup development officers that are working with startups to move their company forward. The other program that we're going to highlight is what we call our IP to Startup program, where we also invite universities to submit IP or patents to be scored by the Corporate Selection Committee. The highest scoring IP will be included in an IP book for distribution to corporates, as well as be earmarked to be developed further in cooperation with the corporates that scored them, as well as the universities that submitted them. The other two programs that we are showing at the demo day is what we call the Investor Roadshow. So we've invited angels and VCs to look at companies that have been through our first and second demo day. So these are now double vetted companies that are ready for the next stage of investment. And our newest program is what we call our Startup Development Officer program, where we take the winners of the University Startup Demo Day as well as the IP to Startup program, and we work with the universities, the corporations, and the entrepreneurs to develop them into companies and help them with their milestones and business plans. So our demo day in October is actually very interesting. We are focusing more on helping the startups and the universities develop their companies in order for them to be ready for the corporates when the milestones that are specified get completed. So if you are planning to come to the demo day, if you're planning to submit companies for the demo day for the IP to Startup program, make sure that you meet the deadline. The deadline is August 25th. So that's 3 weeks away. So hopefully we see your company there or your IP there, and we'll be able to show them to the corporations in our corporate selection committee. Again, the deadline is August 25th, and I'd like to emphasize that we are accepting both startups and IP. So right now we are accepting a total of 200 startups and companies. So if you have startups or IP to submit, please feel free to click on the links or visit our website for more information. We have one more webinar in this series, and it's going to be on Monday, and that webinar is going to be with Ultratech. Please make sure to check your emails because we do update those that are registered for this webinar on where the slides are located, as well as the videos and updates on the schedule. So please make sure to check your email. Another webinar that's coming up in the next couple of weeks is what we call the Certified Startup Development Officers webinar. It's an introduction to the program that I mentioned earlier, where we are working with the universities, the corporates, the startups. Basically, those that submit IP or startups to us should come to this webinar to know more about the next steps, where you're going to get your next funding, or how you're going to develop your milestones, or how you're going to develop your business plan. I suggest you come to this webinar on August 16th to know more about the Startup Development Officers program and see how we can help you. At the end of the session today, we are going to have Q&A. So if you look to your right, you should see your GoToWebinar control panel. Please type in your questions in the questions box, and the Q&A will be held in the end. We'll try to get through as many questions as we can, but if we happen to miss your questions because we run out of time, just email us at support@nced2.org and we'll get an answer to your question. This webinar is being recorded, so if you have colleagues that are interested in knowing more about Praxair or the other um, corporations that have presented in this series, just go to nced2.org/webinars. It'll be available 24 to 48 hours after we conclude today's session. You can also go directly to our YouTube channel where you can not only see past webinars, not only in this series, but also the congressional briefings we've done in the past and the other programs that we do to help universities and startups. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker for this afternoon. So this afternoon's speaker is Dr. John Sermon. He is the Director of External Technologies for Praxair. So currently his job is he's been with Praxair for the last 20 years in positions in business marketing, R&D, and technology planning. So his job now is to identify, develop, and as well as integrate external technology partners to support Praxair's technology and business needs. So I'll turn it over to him now so he can start his presentation. Hi, John. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone.
So you should be able to show your slides now.
Yep, hopefully everyone can see them now.
All right, there you go.
Okay. So thank you for the introduction and the opportunity to discuss what Praxair's needs are and why we're part of the NCET program. So it's going to be a 15 to 20 minute overview of who Praxair is and what specifically we're looking for, and then we'll leave time for questions at the end. So who is Praxair? So we're a Fortune 300 company. We have sales around $11 billion last year. Probably grow a little bit in 2017, which makes us one of the largest industrial gas companies in the world. We operate in more than 50 countries and have around 26,000 employees. We have a very, good culture of being an environmentally responsible and socially responsible companies. I just kind of highlighted one particular thing, but there's many examples if you just go on the Praxair website to take a look. But as an example, you can see the safety performance of the last decade for Praxair. That we're significantly better than our peers in the same segment as us, and that carries over into all of the kind of corporate responsibilities that is part of Praxair. As a business, we serve many markets. We touch almost everything that you see in a manufacturing world or a business world. So I just highlighted that the major markets that we serve: aerospace, chemicals, electronics, energy, manufacturing, healthcare, food, metals. And we have a reasonable distribution across all of those, between the kind of 10 to 20% range of our business is spread over those. So we really do operate in a nice wide variety of segments. We are a technology company. We develop new applications every year. We have around 4,000 active patents. So we're always interested in developing new technology and working with partners to improve our technology position. Praxair, as I said, is an industrial gas company, and what does that mean? We divide it into three categories. The atmospheric gases, which are products that just naturally exist in the air, so it's oxygen, nitrogen, argon, some of the other more rare gases, xenon, krypton, neon. Then we have what's called the process gases, where we take an industrial process to produce a gas. So we would use natural gas to produce hydrogen. We purify carbon dioxide from other industrial processes. We generally do not deliberately make carbon dioxide. There's plenty of industrial processes that emit carbon dioxide, and we just capture, purify, and distribute. Other gases would be helium, acetylene, propylene, etc. And then we have the specialty gases used in electronics or other kind of instrument gases and specialty mixtures. And we have a dedicated set of plants that are geared towards producing these specialty gases. So that's basically what the overview of who Praxair is. So I'm going to move on to the technology needs. What is it that we're looking for from startup or university type partners? And I'm going to break it into three categories: the production and distribution side, what we generally internally call our supply systems. Then the uses of industrial gases, which typically are based around new applications. And finally, our performance coatings that we have as well. So before I go into each individual category, why do we look for these things? So essentially, Praxair is looking to improve our profitability. So what can we do to reduce the cost of producing, storing, delivering our products? So that includes methods to improve optimization, new methods for producing the gases. Of course, we're always looking to exclude competitors with strong IP, which is why we have such a large patent position. The other aspect that we're looking for is growth. So typically, we're not looking at creating new molecules. They generally are kind of already out there. So we're looking for new applications for the molecules. So what are opportunities that exist today that do not use a gas or use a low amount of gas where there would be a benefit for increasing the amount of gas? New markets, equipment to distribute the gas to the customer in the most effective way. And again, it's all backed up around the IP that we're looking for. So moving on to production and distribution. One of the biggest ways we make industrial gas, the air gases, is through cryogenic distillation. And one of the biggest costs associated with that is derived around the gas compression and subsequent expansion to create the cooling to get to the cryogenic temperatures. So we spend a lot of money on large air compressors, and both in terms of the cost of the compressor, but also the cost to operate the compressor. They're one of the largest consumers of electricity. So anything that can improve gas compression or expansion technology, whether it be from the turbine or the electric motors, have a lot of interest to us. In the process side of things, the actual gas separation process, the purification. So other than cryogenic separation, we may use membranes, we may use different kind of swing absorption technologies, whether it be a pressure swing absorption or a temperature swing absorption. So technologies that can improve the process of those to get the efficiency of the separation improved. We also look at electrochemical processes, although for us as a business, that is a much smaller, it's a smaller portion of our production methods at the moment, but there's definitely a lot of activity in electrochemical separation that we're interested in following. Moving on to materials, again, the absorbent materials that are used in our pressure swing absorption for producing oxygen or nitrogen, anything that can be done to improve the absorption characteristics, the rates, the selectivities, the packing density, that's extremely useful for us. In our hydrogen production, we have high temperatures, so new metals that can tolerate the high temperatures that without having degradation, without having metal dusting or fouling or sooting characteristics are all very interesting for us. Storing the materials, there's a couple of different avenues that we look at. We often store materials either as a cryogenic liquid, and the better the insulation of the storage, the less loss we have. We also store at high pressures, so ways of creating high pressure vessels at low cost, low weight for maneuverability is interesting. And also using the similar type of adsorbent materials in the separation process to actually help store the gas at a higher unit density than we can through typical compression. As you can imagine, our plants are pretty complex, large operations. So we do a lot of remote modeling and control of those systems. We have a lot of modeling expertise for that, but we're always looking for new opportunities that can help us in that area. Gas liquid contacting, as I mentioned, we cryogenically separate, so we're turning to the gas into a liquid. So part of it is a liquid, part of it is gas. So we get this kind of direct contact, and ways of improving the heat exchange across those gas liquid contacts. Again, is an opportunity for us to improve the efficiency. Overall heat exchange, whether it be a higher temperature heat exchange using a hydrogen separation or low temperature heat exchange in the cryogenic. Again, we have a large expense associated with heat exchange, so things that can be done to improve heat transfer in those operations is something, again, that we're always looking to make improvements. Similarly with heat rejection, when we compress the gas, there's waste heat generated, and anything that you can do to capture and reuse that waste heat is definitely very useful. We also use water-cooled heat exchangers, and people who are in that field will be aware that fouling is a problem, and we spend a lot of money on anti-fouling treatments of water. So alternative technologies to try and prevent fouling would also be very helpful for us. So that kind of is a very quick summary of the needs on the supply side. So I'm going to move now on to the uses. And so the first one is combustion. Oxygen is used in a lot of processes to enhance combustion, which reduces the energy consumption of our customers. So typically a customer is burning a fuel in order to generate heat for his process. And if we supply oxygen instead of air for that combustion, then we can improve the overall efficiency and reduce their fuel consumption. We do a lot of work in metals and glass in this area, and again have a lot of expertise in this area. But if there's new concepts for either applications for using the oxygen instead of an air combustion process, or different ways of integrating the oxygen into the system that could improve the overall efficiency, we would look at that with a lot of interest. Industrial gases are used a lot in chemical feedstocks, in chemical production. So carbon monoxide, hydrogen especially are used as feedstocks. So if there's other applications that could use the gases, we would look at those. Also, control over the gases is also something that we would have an interest in understanding what people may have developed there. The energy sector is, a couple of different areas, and the exploration side and the production side. We use gases in that area for energized fracking, enhanced oil recovery. We have a what's called a dry frac process, so you don't have to use water in the fracking. We use CO2 as a fracking thing we developed a couple of years ago. And also on the upgrading side, we sell a lot into the refineries. One of the largest hydrogen producers in the Gulf Coast for refining of crude oil into the more useful products that get consumed today. Food and beverage. In the food side, we have our own freezer line, a cryogenic freezer line, which we build, and we use liquid nitrogen to freeze foods. We've done our own development to improve the efficiency of those freezers and lower their overall consumption of energy. So if there's other areas that can benefit from that. Also, the actual packaging of the products using cryogenics is kind of an interesting area to enhance shelf life of foods and improve safety. And then we use gases in beverage for carbonation predominantly, but also for like nitrogen pumping of beers and things like that as well. So if there's areas in the food and beverage associated with enhancing food safety or food quality, that's something that we have an R&D team taking a look at that. Electronics, we sell a lot of gases into the semiconductor space for actual chip manufacturing. Both atmospheric gases are used in semiconductors, but also specialty gases. And a lot of the semiconductor gases are extremely hazardous. So a lot of what we do in that area is around improving safety and delivery of those gases. So if there's things that people have in terms of safe delivery systems for toxic gases, then we definitely have an interest in that area. Healthcare, we supply hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, healthcare facilities around the world with oxygen and nitrogen. We also have specialty technology around the processing of pharmaceuticals. A lot of the kind of biochemical processes that go into pharmaceuticals are extremely well controlled, and we have technology associated to improve the overall kind of cooling control associated with that pharma manufacturing. So things that would fit into that area, again, would supplement the type of work that we do internally. And the kind of more basic materials, the metals and glass, etc. In both the processing of the metals themselves or the glass, we do enhanced combustion for the to generate the heat, but also a lot of atmospheric control associated to make sure that the quality of the final product is maintained at a very high level. So if there's applications associated with metal or glass manufacturing, where alternative methods of introducing the gas or alternative gas compositions could benefit, or if you're developing new products that are not typically on the market today that would have a need for atmospheric control. An example in that would be 3D printing. Then there's definitely an area of interest for us there. Environmental control. Again, we support both water and wastewater treatment using a variety of gases. So again, anything that's kind of in that environmental water treatment would fit well with us. And then the metal fabrication for us generally means either welding or joining of metals. We have a huge variety of gas compositions that we've developed over the past few decades that are specifically tailored to each metal composition. So a stainless steel compared to a carbon steel compared to an aluminum alloy will all benefit from a different gas to get superior characteristics. Similarly to those, the metal 3D printed parts also will benefit from those. So people who are in the metal fabrication space would be interested to understand, what you may or may not have in that area. Then the final subject is around performance coatings. We actually have an entire business unit called Praxair Surface Technologies, around a $700 million business annually, that make metallic and ceramic coatings to prevent thermal damage, wear resistance, corrosion, and we put those on various substrates. Most of the things we do are related to a thermal spray process. So we're supplying heat and gas together with the coating material and putting it onto the surface. They're generally what's considered kind of thick film coatings. So if there's applications or need for improving the performance of your materials for an application you're developing, we'd have interest in understanding that to see if there's a new opportunity for our coatings, or if you have your own coating technology that would complement what we do, then there would also be an interest there. And then my final slide is around how do we go about sourcing technology? So obviously we have our own R&D activity internally. We have several hundred R&D researchers who are developing all the technologies I discussed above, but we also spend a significant amount of time looking externally. We have a whole variety of ways that we do for that. We have the technology needs list, which I just kind of walked through, that we present and get out to people so that they're aware of what we're looking for. We have a very focused technology scouting program where we go out and look for specific technologies that we know what we're targeting, and make contacts there. We have general networking with companies, universities, national labs. We participate in new technology forums. So, I'll be at the NSET 2 event in October, and, happy to meet as many people as are interested in speaking with Praxair at that time. We have, the corporate website allows people to submit their proposals. We engage with startups. We have a number of ongoing programs at the moment with startups that fit into those technology needs that I just went through, and those are very encouraging. I think we get a lot of benefit from those. We work with third-party organizations who facilitate interaction between startups and corporates. People like the NSET or people like Tech Connect, also working with venture capital companies. And then occasionally we put out competitions where we have a specific thing in mind, and we do a prize-based system where we ask for submissions and we award a prize, a cash-based prize to the winner of that competition who has the best new idea. And more importantly, we're looking for a relationship which we can benefit mutually from that. So obviously I went through everything pretty quickly there because I want to leave time for questions. The material is available after this, the PowerPoint, so you can go through and look and see if those technologies fit the bill for any of you. And I look forward to receiving different submissions through this process to see if there's good opportunities for us to engage. So thank you very much, and happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you for your presentation. And again, as John mentioned, we will have his slides up on the website after the webinar concludes today. So, as I mentioned earlier, we do send out emails regularly to all the attendees to let them know when the videos and when the slides are available. So please check your email. And if you have, specific questions about the any of the technologies or any of the technology needs that John presented today, uh, you can type in your questions in the questions box of your GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll queue up your question for for the Q&A that's pretty much starting now. All right. So John, I have the first question up. We have about 10 questions lined up right now, so hopefully we get more as we go through them. So our first question is, we plan to submit IP to the demo day. Are you interested in looking at those too?
So the short answer is yes. We definitely will be looking at IP, and we mine IP as part of our overall process. And there's lots of occasions where we license intellectual property. We would have to look at each case, as it stands on its own merits. If it's an early IP position and there's very little work that's been done, it'll make it more challenging for us to adopt that IP, because there just isn't enough to go on. But as I said, the short answer is yes, and we would take a look at it and see what makes sense.
Thank you, John. So our next question is, how much involvement do you expect from entrepreneurs when you engage or help develop their company?
The entrepreneur needs to be the leader of the effort, right? It's their technology that they have developed, right? So they should be the owners of that. We absolutely will provide a lot of support and know-how, if it's going to benefit Praxair. In some cases, the entrepreneur is looking at an exit strategy, which is fine, and we would do a diligence process to understand if it made sense for us to acquire that technology. But if the plan is to have a joint development effort, then the entrepreneur is expected to take the lead on that.
All right, great. And we have a question that is somewhat related to the first question about IP. What is the ideal stage of IP technology? Do you expect studies, results, etc.? If a startup, do you require sales?
So in general, we refer to the DOE TRL scale for technology readiness. And we say things that are at least at TRL 3, preferably in the kind of 4 or 5 range, depending on how directly relevant it is to our own technology. So you have to have done, it has to be more than just a basic idea. You have to have done either some fundamental work, or some modeling that shows that heat and mass balances, for example, have been factored in. They do not have to. If it's a startup company, it does not have to have sales. I would say the majority of startup companies that we would engage it with, do not have sales. Certainly, they don't have sales in the technology that they're developing. So that's perfectly fine. But as long as there's some studies have been done, and it's not just an idea, then that's the level that we're looking at.
Okay, great. So I'll pull up the next question now. So our next question reads, do you have mentoring programs for startups that you're interested in?
So we don't have a formal, mentoring program, but we do provide mentoring services. So, as an example, recently we're working with a startup company who submitted an application for a Department of Energy grant, and we have a lot of experience in applying for those grants and managing those grants. So we'll mentor that company through the process. Again, we won't take the lead on the process for them. If they want to apply for the grant, they should apply for it. But in terms of providing guidance and mentoring, we'll absolutely do that. But there is no formal program.
All right, John, our next question is, do you also look at technologies that support your business units like software, IT, IoT, etc.?
Yes, we do. I personally, I kind of get bombarded with those. The job title external technologies seems to make people with any type of IT or software related thing contact me. So I actually get a lot of those. So we're always looking for things that will allow us to operate more effectively. I'm not sure that we do that many things with people who are looking to, still developing their product, or where it's not kind of ready for at least some type of use. Typically we would want to be more of a user of that rather than a developer of that.
Okay. So John, just as a time check, there are still 5 questions lined up, and I see 2 more in the queue coming in. So we'll probably have about 7 questions left.
Okay.
So here we are. The next question is, in relation to grant applications, do you also provide letters of support?
Yes, I provide letters of support. Again, we look at what the application is. It has to have technical merit, and it has to have some type of business linkage to what Praxair is. We want to maintain that we're only providing letters of support if we think it makes sense, and it justifies that. But yeah, I do make letters of support out on a fairly regular basis.
Okay, perfect. I know you mentioned this in your presentation earlier, but maybe you'd like to add more detail if you'd like. Do you also source companies from the SBIR program or funded by the federal government?
Yes. Yeah, I look at and I go to various SBIR conferences and meet with companies who are recipients. That's a good, that's kind of they've generally already passed some type of feasibility study, so that in many ways helps in terms of our assessment. We know that someone has already reviewed the technology for them to receive the grant, which makes the vetting process a bit easier. So that's a good way for us to engage with companies.
Okay, great. Our next question is, this sounds interesting. Does the technology startup need to be an exact fit, or have you experienced finding a technology that's interesting but needs some tweaking?
So no, it does not have to be an exact fit. It has to have relevance, to our business, right? Our business is industrial gas. So if it's something that can be adapted to either improve the performance of our operations or to create new applications, then yes, we look at those. And there's definitely cases of us working with technologies that maybe have a relevance to us, but 95% of what they're doing is not that relevant. And in those cases, what we're looking for with the engagement is, to capture that part that is relevant and leave the startup company to have ownership of the areas that is not interesting for us. So those things can actually often work out, very well for both parties, because we can provide, a lot of insight and guidance to the startup company, and what we're asking in return is kind of something relatively small, because it's they're looking at a broader market than just industrial gas, and we're only interested in capturing the value associated with the gas.
Okay, great. Our next question is, can you describe how you work with universities to discover new technologies or startups?
So a lot of universities have a industrial liaison, organization or department. So that often is the way we connect with the university, is through their industrial liaison. We have, as I said, several hundred PhD R&D personnel who obviously have all come from a university. So we get a lot of personal linkages to the universities through those folks, where someone knows, or the professor knows of this person, and they've been done a startup shootout from the university. So that's another way that we engage. And then we attend a variety of conventions that feature university startups as part of that we also get first-hand interaction with. So those are three examples of how we work with the university on that discovery process.
Okay, perfect. And John, this is the second to the last question, so we can most likely wrap up after this. Aside from the technology alignment, what other criteria do you look at to engage with a startup?
So the most critical part, apart from technology alignment, is the team of people. We have to have a comfort level, with the team who are developing the technology. That means that we're comfortable with their kind of technology savvy, their business savvy. If they're going to be operating a business, they have to understand what that entails, what their overall culture is, to social and corporate responsibility. So those, I would say, it would be the key things that we would look for. We are always mindful of intellectual property position. So if someone has a startup that has a technology but doesn't actually have any intellectual property protection, then that would be a point of concern for us, because we may not ever have a way of monetizing the technology as it's developed.
Okay, and our last question for this afternoon. In your opinion, do you find IP startups you're interested in from universities, are they generally market aligned?
So yes, we find we find both IP and startup companies that have been spun out from universities interesting. There certainly historically has been a lack of kind of market awareness from university folks, but I think as more and more universities have developed these kind of industrial liaison partner groups, and most of those people who work on those have come from industry. I think the universities are getting better at understanding that there has to be a business need and a market need. So timing is probably the most problematic issue. With a university startup, it's often a different kind of time horizon than maybe we would prefer. But again, I think those things can be managed, and we do have ongoing projects right now, and we have projects that have completed that started from a university spin out into a small startup, and then have become integrated into the Praxair core business. So I think it's definitely is one of the useful areas for us to be looking at externally.
Okay, so John, that is the last question we have for this afternoon. So thank you again for joining us today, and thank you for your time. I'd like to remind everyone that John's slides with with the list of technologies that Praxair is interested in will be available 24 to 48 hours on our website, along with the video recordings. So if you have colleagues, or if you're a university and you have a portfolio of startups that you think Praxair would be interested in, I do encourage you to go back to the webinar videos or to download the slides when they're available, so you can go through them really quickly to meet the August 25th deadline. So again, I'd like to reiterate for those who missed it earlier today, the deadline to submit is August 25th, and we are looking for two types of applications from universities, researchers, and entrepreneurs. So startups, the highest scoring startups will be granted a presentation slot at the demo day, and those that submit IP, the highest scoring IP that is submitted, will be featured in an IP book, as well as be provided feedback. And for both submissions, members of our corporate selection committee, like John, will be looking at these companies, and they'll be ranking and scoring them to look at the company description, the team, and basically the technology. So as John mentioned earlier, there are several criteria that there are uh, items that they look at in order to engage with startups, or as well as to see IP as something that they'll be interested in. So before we conclude today's session, John, do you want to say some final words before we say goodbye?
Other than, again, thanks for the time of the folks listening, and look forward to meeting some of you in DC in October. And if you have any other questions, or you want to send anything directly to me, then you can certainly feel free to do that.
Okay, thank you very much for your time again, John, and thank you for our audience for joining us today. We wish you all a good afternoon, and yeah, good day.
Thank you.